Hello everybody and welcome back to my podcast. This is Anne of Fiber, Floss, and Fiction, and today is September the 15th, 2019. I'm back a little bit sooner than usual, but I knew I was not going to be able to film next weekend, so I thought I didn't want to wait 3 weekends and try to do this. So jumping on today for hopefully a slightly shorter podcast about my knitting, books, and my stitching. If you are new, welcome. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. I'm always delighted to have you guys spend a little time with me, and hopefully today will be more of the same. So the fall weather has kind of shown up today. It's really overcast. They're saying maybe some rain, which is not usual for us in the fall, but if it gets to be 70 degrees, I will be surprised. Long sleeves are the name of the game today. There's a little breeze. I'm happy as a clam. I love it. It's like the perfect weather. I'm looking out across the way. So between our house, or looking off to the east from our house off our back deck, we can see the Sangre de Cristo mountain range, and between us and the mountain range is the Rio Grande River, which runs in the gorge we have to cross in order to get down to Santa Fe. And whenever we have a humid for us day, like 35% humidity, there's always a line of clouds that are right over the top of the river, so I can look out across and see, kind of trace the track of the river. It's really cool. Anyway, one of the perks of living here in the mountains in New Mexico. So let's go ahead and get started. I am going to try to keep this no more than about 30-35 minutes if I can. So let's go on to knitting. I have a few things to show you guys, not huge progress on anything, but let's talk first about Chauncey. I was looking to see if I had the cover. I don't think I do. I do not. I will put links to the Ravelry pages for all of these projects. If you are so inclined, you can go and find them there and check them out. This is a yoke neck sweater that I am knitting using 2 colors of Woolly Wonka Fibers Aerten sock, which is the merino cashmere nylon. And again, last time I had finished the yoke, which is in Chimney Sweep, which is the pale silver, and Forest Primeval, which is the dark green. And I have knit a little bit more on the body. Not a ton, but like I said, there was no deadline on this. I just was knitting it as I have time and interest to. I have finished the first ball of this main color, so I've added in the second skein, and I'm just knitting around and around till it gets, long enough. I'll probably pop it on some scrap yarn and try it on when I think it's getting close and make sure it'll hang where I want it to. I tend to always have to shorten stuff in the body, so we'll probably have to do the same with that. Next, I have made some progress on my grandpa coat, which is a grandpa cardigan, excuse me. Joji Locatelli pattern. Last time I showed it to you, I believe I just had the back done, and this still looks a little bit crazy, but you can kind of see what I'm working on now. So this is the one that you cast on, again, I can never remember this word, provisional cast on for the shoulder seam, which is right there. So you work the back completely down to the armpits, which I have done, and then you pick up each side separately at the shoulder seam and you work the fronts down. So I have finished the right front down to the same point on the back. So this is going to be the underarms, and this will be the V-neck front. And then I have picked up and started knitting down for the left front, and I'm not quite halfway to that. So once I get done all this little fiddly parts where you're casting on extra stitches on either side and adding the pattern and incorporating it as you go, it will be just putting all of these stitches onto one circular needle and then knitting back and forth as I knit down the body. So it is a top-down sweater. Again, I'm knitting this in Rauma Yarn's Strikkegarn, which is a DK weight wool. None of their colorways have names. This is colorway 249, which is just a really nice heathered kind of chocolate brown. I think perfect for fall. So that's where I am on that project. And then finally, the thing that I have been working on most this week, which will look like nothing, but this is going to be kind of an epic project. I have cast on for what is going to be a, how can I describe this? This piece is going to go on the runway for the Stitches events next year, but I'm going to do this one without a pattern, this particular model with no pattern written, and I will do a simpler sweater length pattern. This is going to be a much bigger, longer dress. And I'm using the new yarn that the yarn guys sent me, which is the alpaca linen blend, which if you're familiar with Kid Silk Haze, it's a lot like that. So the alpaca is spun into the linen core. So it's super strong, like I can't even snap, I cannot physically snap it apart. I have to cut it. With the alpaca as kind of like almost a mohair halo, but it's super, super soft. So I have cast on and I'm working on this project. This is about what you guys can see of it. And yes, those are beads. They are clear silver lined beads, which are gonna go on the hem. I'm starting this from the bottom up. I have about 400 stitches on the needles for this right now. So it's kind of difficult to show you anything about it other than this little bit. And because there's like 400 stitches on the needles, it's very time consuming to work a row. So I'm just doing that right now. I am working on this. More to come as I get to something that's a little more interesting, but at least you can see what this looks like for now. And I love how this fabric feels. I'm really excited to be working with this yarn because it's just very different. And I have ideas for a few pieces that we're going to use this base for. So yeah, really looking forward to that. But I can actually show you guys that because this isn't something that's like for sale. It's just going to be a sample, if you will. I have no hand spinning to really show you guys. It's only been a week, so I'm still working on the singles to match the first bobbin that I showed you last time I recorded, but it's not far along enough to show you or to take it off the wheel, so we'll just zip past that and move on to books. I have finished 2 books this past week. The first of which is a book called The Old Ways. It's by Robert McFarlane. He's a British writer, I think Scottish by birth. This book is about not only pathways in the UK, but worldwide, where he has gone on hikes that are somehow tied to the history of the place. And so each chapter is a different place that he's gone on a walk following one of these old ways, like a path that was worn by foot travel and is no longer used. So there's several of these in the UK that he brings up, but he also goes to Spain and into Portugal, and then he also goes to Tibet, I believe it is, as well as Israel and Palestine. So it's a very varied set of landscapes that he walks through, but he approaches all of them from kind of a historical, what was this road used for in the past, or what was this area like in the past, and what would you have seen if you were a traveler walking through the landscape 1,000 years ago or 100 years ago. And it's very interesting, particularly the chapter that was on the path that he walked in Israel, because that area has had so much political upheaval over the centuries, And he has a guide that walks with him that's local in almost every place. And so you get a lot of the history of the place, and it's a nonfiction book, I guess I should say that. It's a very introspective, kind of meditative book. It's very well written. He obviously is a wordsmith and word crafter. This isn't like he's all about the slow process of the walk. He's not about like scaling the highest peak or living on the edge. He's really more interested in finding out about this little part of the world by slow and steady contemplation of it. It's really, his writing is lyrical. I enjoyed this book quite a bit. I think it's the kind of thing that would serve better as a book on the bedside table that you could read a chapter a night and then kind of meditate on it. I was reading it because it has an O in the title for the old ways, and that was the very last book I needed for the School of Magical Stitches Ultimate Reading Challenge to finish the acrostics for that one. So I was really just kind of reading it because I wanted to check that off my list. I think I'm going to go back and reread this at some point, maybe next year, just to absorb a little bit more of it. And it's much more of kind of a slow read book. I think it would benefit from that rather than trying to read it start to finish. This author has a number of other books, so if you try this one and like his writing, I believe this is book 3 in his Old Ways series, so he's got other ones that talk about pathways and things that are linked to older or ancient history. So if you like to learn about the history of the place kind of from the ground up, these are great. I think these are great ways to do that because each chapter is its own little vignette of a place. I don't think this book's necessarily for everybody. I mean, there's not like a lot of action in it. It's mostly him walking through a landscape and describing it and then talking some about the history of the place. He ties in a lot of British writers, particularly around the First and Second World War, so like the first third of the 20th century, and kind of their interpretations of a place. But if you like sort of literature reads, it's a good one. I enjoyed it. The next book I read is a book called The Iron King by the author Julie Kagawa. I read this for one of the First Kiss. I read it for one of the First Kiss prompt in School of Magical Stitches extra credit reading for September and October. Julie Kagawa, if you're not familiar with her, she is a young adult author. She has, I believe it's 15 books out now that kind of all center around the same world, if I'm not mistaken. I know at least 6 or 7 of them do for sure. And those 6 or 7, if not all 15, focus on similar characters. So the characters pop up in the series as well as the world. So this is the first book in her Iron Fae series. They are fantasy, and our main heroine, who is 16-ish, she is somebody who is not well liked at school. She's a bit of a loner. She has one friend, her friend Robbie, who kind of looks out for her, but they sort of have a big brother-sister relationship where they're sort of constantly teasing and poking at each other. It turns out that she is half fae. She is half fairy. And she gets, I guess, roped into, that's maybe not the right word, her younger brother, who is her half-brother, and he's only 4, he gets stolen by the fairies. And a changeling is left in his place. And she, because she can see fairy, because she is half fairy, recognizes that this awful thing living in their house is not her brother. And so she sets off to find Ethan in the world of the Fae. And Robbie winds up going with her. He winds up not being what she originally thought he was. And so she has to kind of navigate the politics at the Seelie and Unseelie courts, which are the two main kind of. Seelie is the summer court and Unseelie is the winter court of the fairies. And they each kind of have their own power base, and they are also kind of always at loggerheads with each other. War is imminent almost all the time because they're very antagonistic to each other. So she has to navigate all of these perils and pitfalls within the kingdom at the court, as well as things that are on the travels that she takes. And she kind of grows up during the book and becomes much more self-sufficient and self-confident. So good girl power book. I really enjoyed this. I don't always love young adult, but this one, the world building is really good. This author knows how to write fight scenes, let's say that. There really isn't, I mean, there's some violence, but you know it's made up because it's really, I mean, there's a lot of these made up characters. She does a really good job as well building a whole world that isn't just fairies. You know, there's goblins and there's a talking cat, and who I love. I loved that character. He is so cat-like. She did a great job with him. She brings in a bunch of historical fairies, if you will. There's Titania and Oberon, which you may recognize from Shakespeare. But then she also has some contemporary things going on in there and is able to explain how all of these things are living together in the land of fairy with a reasonable explanation. So you think, oh, yeah, I get that. I understand that. That makes sense. Like, you're willing to go along on the ride with her. So if you like fantasy, stories about fairies, some girl power, really recommend that. I definitely enjoyed that one. So much so that I actually picked up the first 4 books that she has in the Iron Fae series are about this main character, Megan. I picked up what is then, I think, book 5 for the information that I got from her website. And it's called The Lost Prince, which is kind of the backstory then about what happens to Megan's little brother when he becomes a teenager. So I haven't finished that one yet. I'm reading it currently. I'll review it next time I come to talk to you guys. So those were the 2 books for this go round. So let's move on to stitching. Let me move some stuff. Talk about what I worked on this week. Okay, so first up, I put in a bunch of stitches on my summer garden piece from the Drawn Thread. I am doing this on a 32 count linen. This is the colorway is called French Lace. It is a Witchelt linen, and I'm substituting in all of the called for colors with my own choices. Oops, as I drop my pen. So I had this much of the house finished, and I needed to do stitches that were either half stitches or back stitches. So I just went along and I put in all of the flowers and the word summer that run along the bottom of this. So these words are what I added. Super easy, straightforward. Yeah, that was for an extra credit prompt in the School of Magical Stitches. Next up, I worked on Which Way. It's this one. So it is a Heaven and Earth Designs chart. The original artwork is by Molly Harrison, which you can see there. I love this one. I worked on this for a couple of different things, different prompts and whatnot in Magical Stitches, and I also put some stitches into it for this Friday. I'm 2 days ago, which was dark 13 stitching, as well as the full moon and the harvest moon, which I kind of had to, you know what I'm saying? It just fit too well. So here's where I am on that. I have pages 1 and 2 finished, and I'm on page 3. After page 3, there's, I believe, 2.5 columns left to finish this upper row, and then that's done. This is the mini, it's not the full size. So this one may come out today. I'm trying to decide if I want to do that or work more on a stitching shelf, but this will be out next weekend for sure, just to get some more stitches into it, I think. And this may be out for a while. I think it would be a great one to use for October. So I had met my goal on this year to finish the page that has her face on it, but I may work on it some more. So you may see that one out again. She's really fun to do. There's where I am currently up here, there's not a ton of confetti. I mean, there's always some, but it's not too bad. Okay, next I worked on Village of Hawk Run Hollow for a bunch of prompts. This little one is heavy sighs from the dog. Her life is so hard. We took a very long walk today, and I think I broke her. But anyway, working on Village of Hawk Run Hollow, and I am working on, let's see, I believe it is block 8 now. Let me show you the whole thing. Oops. There we go. I'm stitching this on a 22 count Hardanger. It is from Picture This Plus. The colorway is Legacy, but it's so subtle on this you really hardly can tell. It basically looks like antique white most of the time. So close up on this block, which is the grist mill here in the center. So that is what I'm working on currently. And this one will come out again for Magical Stitches homework this week. There's a lot of things I can use this project for this week's prompts. So I'll get a little bit more time in on that. Not sure that I will get the block finished. It's pretty stitch heavy, especially here at the bottom with the mill pond and the, I don't know, scrub flowers there, as well as this signage. So I'm not sure that I will be able to get it done, but I am gonna, you know, put 1,000 stitches in it, which doesn't hurt to get it finished. So that's where I am on that one. Still love working on this. Still am gonna try to get it as close to a finish as I can over the next 4 months to get it done in 2019. Okay, then last but not least, I have been working on a stitching shelf, which is a Heaven and Earth Designs chart with artwork by Aimee Stewart. I have been working on the top bookshelf, and I have passed the halfway point by getting through to there. That is page 6 of 7. I want to try to get through page 7 this year. That's one of my personal goals. So let me show you where that is right now. So I actually have finished this page. I have finished page 6. I have been working on that this weekend for our Ancient Adventures weekend in Full Coverage Fanatics, which was just to work on your oldest full coverage whip, which this one is. This is the very first one I started. Go hard or go home, which I never say. So I have a little bit more to do of this kind of center block with the hourglass. These are large format pages, so they're configured a little bit differently, but still making progress on them, so that's good. Holy Confetti Batman. This, it looks amazing, but the confetti in that block is crazy. Just happy that I'm done with it. I'm just gonna say that. Yeah, so that's where this one stands right now. So again, I am going to try to get this next page, page 7, done before the end of the year, which I think I can do because I've been getting through a page in about 6 weeks. So I feel fairly strongly, since I have the rest of September and then October, November, December to work on it, I should have that goal done with no problem. And it winds up being good for a lot of extra credit type stuff, so I'm just using it when I can. And yeah, so I put about 750 stitches into that so far this weekend, and I'm debating whether I want to like do some more on that or if I want to switch to which way for a little while. I haven't totally decided, but anyway, that will be back out again. So in terms of plans this week, you saw I'm basically going to be working on Hawk Run Hollow for homework. And then when I finish that, whatever I want to pick up for some extra credit is what I'll pick up. I did want to mention something that, depending on where you are on Facebook, like what groups you follow, you may or may not have seen, but this is not available for sale yet. It still has to be charted, but I know it will appear at some point on Heaven and Earth Designs. Aimee Stewart, who is the artist for a stitching shelf, has released brand new artwork called Once Upon a Fairy Tale. It's another one of her bookshelves. Yeah, as soon as this comes out, I'm getting it. I'm gonna stitch it. I'm 99% sure I'm gonna get the Max Colors one. There's nothing about this that I do not like. Y'all, this pattern is amazing. And I'm a little bit scared because a stitching shelf was already my like nursing home piece, and that's at least, I mean, it's gonna be as big. It's gonna be as big, but look at the detail, y'all. That snowy owl, the harp, the unicorn, okay. The blue dragon, the green dragon, that white horse with the lady. Sorry for the glare. I'm trying to show you this on my tablet. Those horses, the Viking ship. I have no words. So anyway, this is probably going to change some of my plans for next year, because I know I want to start that. I know I'm going to want to start it basically right away. Maybe a new year, new start. I am trying to hold strong and get through 2019 without any new starts, but in looking at the size of that and the size of some of the other full coverage things I've got going, I'm thinking I do not need to start like 12 new BAPs. I need to start a few. I've been very good. I haven't started anything this year, but if I want to focus on that and get it done, and I'm hopeful that I'll live to be 120 and still be spry, or 220 and still be spry, but honestly, at some point, you know, the stash acquisition exceeds life expectation issue rears its ugly head. That one just speaks to me on so many levels. There's no way I can't not stitch it. So y'all know that's a thing that's going to happen. So I'll give you some updated plans when we get a little closer to the end of the year, because the best laid plans of mice and women often go awry, apparently. So if you haven't seen that, you may want to either Google it or pop over and join the Aimee Stewart Heaven and Earth Designs Facebook group, because it's on there and you can blow it up and look at all the detail at your end. Anyway, so look, here it is. Coming up on half an hour, I have managed to get this done. I don't really have anything else for this week. I know I will not be filming next weekend. Depending on how much stuff I get done over the next week, I may try to sneak in middle of the following week and get a recording in, but we'll see. It may be 2 more weeks before y'all hear from me again, but either way, I will be back. Thank you for spending some time with me today. I hope that you've enjoyed all of the stuff that I've rambled on about, and I hope things are well in your corner of the world. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.